It's time for the Postcast.
I was
Where
Hi,
expect
everyone.
I was expect you to sing because right before we do the podcast, you sing something. You find something to sing. So like I never think that we're actually live until like, you're
well,
singing.
I'm sorry that I let you down. Jukebox Jamie has been I don't know, like it's a self censoring kind of a thing because sometimes I'm like I have a song in my head and then I think to myself there's likely an inappropriate lyric somewhere in that song because
Oh.
right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
because you don't like even if you know it's there, like you don't sing that part, but the rest of it might be yeah, cuz and then we
because
all
the
had passed, right? So we might have listened to music and know these songs in a time that we weren't maybe like that close with God, and so then you don't think about the bad parts of the song, and all of a sudden you're like, "Ooh."
yeah.
hmm
Like
You know
I
what
could
happened to me one time?
what?
I don't know if I should tell the story, but I will. I was
Speaking of self-censoring.
I was in the car. It was a minivan, and I had all the kids with me, and Christopher was still in a car seat, so he was little. And I heard the opening um, guitar riff from "Rock You Like a Hurricane" from the Scorpions,
Mhm.
and I remembered that I loved that song as a teenager. I'm like, "Oh, I love this song," and I just yanked. And so we're in the church parking lot with the windows down, and I turned up the volume, and the first few lines of that song are terrible. I can't even repeat them. And I'm like trying to find the off button, and I'm like hitting the radio. Like, stop! I'm the pastor's wife, okay? I'm like,
My poor
mad.
sister, she so like our family was Christian in the sense that we celebrated Christmas and Easter, but she was the first one to really be serious about trying to attend church and kind of like get her spiritual house in order or sort of whatever. And she joined a group in college that was all Christians and they were like going to be having a movie night and she's like, "Oh, we should watch Stand By Me because that's a movie that I loved when I was like 9 or 12 or whatever she was." And she played it and she was like, "I am so sorry," because like right away these kids are like swearing and smoking and whatever all they were doing. And she was horrified.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only person that went through that because I think that as a young teenager and a teenager, I was so innocent that so many things honestly went over my head and I didn't realize it. But my husband and I, we quote often from 16 Candles. The movie 16 Candles. And so when my stepchildren were younger, we were quoting from it and they're like, "What are you talking about?" We're like, "Oh, you got to see this movie." So they were in bed one night and we saw that it came on TV. We're like, "Oh, let's watch it." We were so excited, right? We were still kind of newlyweds at this point. And we turned it on and within the first half an hour we're like, "How did our parents let us watch this show?"
Yeah.
And like we both got through the whole movie as kids so many times that we could quote the movie but missed all of the sexual innuendos and all the but I didn't get that. Now the whole now I have a place to put my hand. I didn't get that as a kid. As an adult, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And here we were quoting this movie to our young children that can't wait to watch it now. And I'm just like, oh, mortified. So yeah, I think we all go through that. So
Yeah. All right. So I have been to the random list generator. And
Randy Miser,
yes, Randy Miser says Jen, Jamie, Tina,
of
Rhonda.
course. Because we haven't got enough Jen in the podcast today.
It
Let's
is
put her
just,
first.
what's the date? We'll just need to mark it down. This is Jennifer Day.
Yeah,
National
well, you know
Jennifer
what?
holiday.
Actually, we're about to silence you. So, frankly, this is
Oh,
probably exactly what we should be doing is silencing you.
Oh, we
so
get to
true.
silence Jen. I didn't.
Good point.
My favorite
Oh.
time.
Well, that's what you want today, right? You want feedback, just general feedback on your piece, right? You don't need to have a discussion with us about it.
I do not need to have a discussion with this one. It has been edited. It is not like as a solid of an edit as I probably would normally do for a critique group. But again, like I just wanted to give you the next installment of the story. So that's why you didn't get the whole chapter because the second part of the chapter needs a lot of work. But I still felt like, no, they need to see some more Sarah. So
Yay! All right, so into the isolation chamber with you, and what do you ladies think? Tell me about it.
I'll go. Okay. So
I, oh,
this,
okay.
I've said before, this is my favorite couple, not just single characters, but couples. So I'm always glad to read something from this. And to answer your questions, is it boring info dumpy? No, I was not bored. I was interested in every word that was in there. And info dumpy, I don't think so. I didn't notice, as a fan of this book, I did not notice any info dump. Let's see. Is it a satisfying chapter? Yes, I love it. I love reading series, and I love it when characters come back. So I was very satisfied with that. And I thought it was really good too, because you learn about, I loved learning about her childhood and why she felt like they didn't, how one side of the family thought they were doing something really nice by spoiling her, but it made her feel like she wasn't wanted or wasn't good enough or important. So I really love that little bit of character. Okay, so that's the top bread. In a second sentence, he mentions Sutton Hall, and then in the third sentence, she mentions Mrs. Sutton. I don't know if that needs to be changed, but the Sutton in such short sentences sort of made me stop for just a second, but I don't care if you change it because, I don't know, I kind of like it too. And then just the part where I was really disappointed that even though she knows that she's breaking a rule, she's still doing it. And I was really kind of disappointed in that, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have it in there. That doesn't mean that it shouldn't be part of her character. I was just kind of disappointed because, being a firstborn,
You mean about the books? You mean
yeah,
about in the books?
Yep. If I was a firstborn, if I'm told not to do something, I don't do it usually. But she is the child, the baby. So, yeah. So I'm not asking Jen to change it. That was just something I was disappointed in.
I do understand what you're saying, and I totally get it. And it just seemed to me like, well, her character is not exactly. She's kind of a rule breaker. And I think that my thought is like, well, I guess it could be worse. I guess she could be like, like she said, hiding in there for hours, actually reading the books, like her sister had suggested, right? So yeah, I mean, that did also stick out to me.
Yeah,
Rhonda,
I mean, for all the house rules to break, that's probably. Oh. Sorry.
So yeah, I didn't think it was info dumpy at all either, and it was very satisfying to see the return of. Was not Phoebe? It was it Phoebe?
Yeah,
I get their names mixed up. I'm Phoebe, terrible, but I get my own children's names mixed up, so that's just not surprising at all. And I really love to hate this Mr. Foley. Like it's like a delicious hate. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, he just seems like a.
And I love this line. I put a heart by this line. None as beautiful as Mrs. Foley, Phoebe said sweetly.
Me too.
Like, that was a great comeback, I thought. Yep. And overall, I liked it. It was good.
Yeah, my bread is partially that reaction and response. That was completely a piece of my bread. And the other bread, Rhonda touched on about finding out about the sister's misunderstanding of how she was interpreting the family's affection and yet lack of discipline or kind of whatever. And how, I mean, because kids all do that, right? Like they're writing their own internal narrative about what's really going on. And meanwhile, the parents are clueless that this is the message they're sending to the children.
We all perceive the world through our own window and, our own filter. And so what we perceive, especially as children, is not always what was actually going on.
Rhonda, did I cut you off too soon? Had you gotten to get it all out there?
No, I think I pretty much said everything. I'm a fan of this.
Yeah, I'm totally a fan of this whole premise and the story. And we have the benefit of knowing something about Sarah that makes her fear of being alone with this Mr. Foley extra tense, which is great because it's a little bit of a foreshadow, right? That she's going to reveal that horrible whatever that happened to her later. So when she's like scared that he's going to trap herself in the room with him, that feels really good. And when she mentioned he he put his hand on her back to shove her into the room, I even was like, oh no, because of what I know, though it is revealed to us later in the story that we know, but readers to this point don't. I will say that my meat for this piece is it reminds me of that last chapter that we got of Sarah and Grant. And it was just kind of a lot of dialogue without a lot of personality hints smattered in. I did take this and put it into a Google Doc, and I highlighted the whole section that I'm talking about. On the very last page, when Phoebe and Sarah start talking to each other, and she does reveal all of those things, there's not a single movement or descriptor of action for 10 paragraphs or something. There's no, she smiled, she giggled, she rolled her eyes, she huffed. There's nothing. So that part did feel stiff to me and more like this and this happened, and then this and this happened. And it didn't feel like two people talking to each other. So I really would encourage her to pepper that, or just find a couple of places where it could be like, she reached out tenderly and took her sister's hand so that the words would be softened. I mean, I'm just making that up. That's not even the feeling of that part of it. But also, I was a little bit jumbled in my head about what the point of this chapter was, because I feel like she introduces the concept of Grant. How did you know that Will was the one? And then there's this whole chunk of the library, and she had all this in common with her sister, and it takes them a really long time to get back around to the whole question of Grant. So at first I was trying to offer edits, but the edits I was offering were not in line with the direction the chapter was trying to take me. So I had to go back and erase a bunch of it. Oh, this is really about, is this about how Sarah was spoiled as a child, or is this about Grant? It was really duplicitous to me and kind of not clear. But I made some suggestions in my document that maybe would help with that. What did I flag up here? Maybe just, I get that there's kind of a device there where she starts to think about how her and her sister are the same, which makes her then think about Will. But then how did you know he was the one? And then I was a little bit confused also, so she was coming there to visit Lansing, and then she thought she had to come and see Sarah, because at first I thought she was coming explicitly to see Sarah. So then I'm like, well, then why would the fact that she was thinking about Sarah the whole way down make her think something odd about that? If the whole point of coming was to see Sarah, do you know what I mean? So I had some weird questions like that. But anyway, I flagged all of those for the author, and she can fix it or not fix it based on all of that. And I think, we can have more dialogue about it or something if she needs it. I wonder what she's going to come up with instead of pumpkin. Is it going to be pumpkin? Is it going to be something else? You know what I mean? Because pumpkin is in capital letters, which is typically a clue that the author is just using that as a placeholder. Do you guys have any idea what would be a good nickname for her to use instead of pumpkin?
Usually I try to think of a replacement for those capitalized words, and I didn't this time.
Yeah.
Let me think for a while.
I guess I feel like I don't really... I would really have to read through more to get a more rounded feel of who Sarah is.
Right.
Before I could come up with a nickname.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we've read quite a bit from this, but it's kind of been separated by time, between scenes. And so I think I would need to read a big chunk at once to try to get a feel for her.
And also I felt like I was a disadvantage because I don't yet really know Phoebe very well. And so my feedback of well, Phoebe sure acts really kind of stiff and stuffy for a lot of this. Is that just Phoebe, or is there something that needs to happen with how she's interacting with her sister to make it a little more casual? But maybe she always is stiff and stuffy with her sister. I don't know. That's because I haven't read all of Phoebe and Will yet. So I'm not really sure what I'm looking for Phoebe. Is that just how she is or what? So that's something for the author to decide because she knows Phoebe better than I do.
I kind of feel like Phoebe's a little bit stiff. She's just very formal and trying to be upright all the time. But I did like the little bit where she slipped her hand into her sister's. I would like to know if that just happened to happen then, or if she saw Sarah getting agitated and she was stopping her. But, I guess that's for the readers imagination. I assume that she saw she was getting agitated.
Did anybody else think, like, for Sarah to say, give me more credit than that he's married, like, I kind of almost felt like, well, your behavior at the boarding school, blah, 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 blah. Like, I mean, would that come out at all? Or would Phoebe, like, maybe check herself from saying that, but at least make some kind of a facial reaction like, well, do you really deserve more credit than that, Sarah? Because your character of late has not been showing me that you would care that this dude is married, you know? So it was a little bit like, so if she's stuffy and upright and rulesy, but then she's trying to show grace. So, I mean, maybe that was just a little bit deeper than I wanted to give it credit for. Did that pause either of you two?
It didn't pause me. Mm-mm.
No.
Awesome. All right. Well, does anybody have anything else to add before we let her come out and address what we said?
Yeah.
I don't know. She hasn't been quiet long enough.
I know. This is fun. Keeping her back there. I just guess in response to what you just asked, I've got pretty definite opinions about these characters, and I guess I just impose that as the reader on it. So, does that answer?
Yep. Yeah, and especially with a series, you know, you can rely on a little bit of that from your reader if they've been tracking along with the whole thing. And I guess that's why I'm kind of saying, like, it would be helpful if I've read everything that I could read about Phoebe, right? It might help me relax about that a little bit. Okay, that's it.
All right. I suppose.
Say it slowly. Slowly.
That's what they do in my family in Minnesota. Like when it's time to go, they'll go, I suppose.
Yeah.
And then they'll talk for another hour before they leave.
Okay, so I guess they're making me say it. So come on out, Jen.
Ooh, finally. No, I'm just kidding. That was some really, really good feedback. Thank you, ladies. Like, so grateful that. Yeah, I love it when a character shows up from a previous book as well. But what I hate it when they show up and it either doesn't fit that character or it is just like falls flat. Like it's not like you could tell they just put him in there just because it's a series and they just want him to show up.
Yes.
So that's what I was worried about. So yes, I think that she is more stiff. And we are reading this from, of course, we're inside of Sarah's head, but I will look at that to make sure that it fits with her. But of the three, she is the way more conservative, and she even calls it her conservative sister. So she's by far the more conservative. So I was trying to write her that way, but I wanted to make sure that she doesn't come off as like way too stiff. And then like the hand slip thing, I purposely did that. Like we don't really know because see, we're inside of Sarah's head. So we don't know if she did that because she saw Sarah being nervous or because she's protecting her sister or she just gets the creeps from this guy. We don't know. But I wanted to show that even though she's really conservative, like she's got her sister's back. Like that's her sister. You know what I mean? Like, so I was hoping that they came out like that. But again, like this, this is not the final edit. The first chapter, the Sutton thing, Rhonda, I wondered about that. So if you stumbled on it, then I'm going to try to find a way to reword that because if you stumbled, then, you know, the Mrs. Foley, not as beautiful as Mrs. Foley. That's probably my favorite line from the whole chapter too.
Yeah, it's really good.
Because even though Phoebe is like more conservative, she also has the sassiness of her sisters, you know, so she's not, you know, isn't going to hold back if she thinks this guy is being inappropriate. Like, because again, she's sassy, she's conservative, but he's like, not only is she sassy, he's kind of testing her conservative values and she's like, kind of thing. So, I love that you were able to like catch the misunderstanding of the spoiled versus, I mean, I'm kind of blatant about it, but, so to answer your question about the purpose of this chapter, I think you kind of nailed it, Jamie, that maybe I was getting off track. I think the purpose of this chapter is to foreshadow, yes, for sure, that we're going to learn soon why we're getting little bits and pieces to where we understand a little bit more about Sarah. If you guys remember, when we first meet Sarah, she's not a likable character. We don't like how she treats her parents. We don't like what she did at the beginning. And so I have to kind of grow her in the reader's eyes to where you like her without it being so much like, boom, now this is everything. This is why she acts this way. It has to be slowly. So that was my purpose.
Which is why I think her still sneaking the books works because she has to grow out of that, right? Like she's maybe not the kind of girl who would do what she did anymore, but she's still a book sneaker.
Yes, I purposely did that because when I wrote the fact that no, I'm not allowed to, I felt like that doesn't sound like something Sarah would say, but I feel like she needs to say it because it's her job. So that's why I purposely put that in there. So great, thank you. So because you guys know what's coming, the foreshadow part, I didn't know if it was strong enough. I still don't know if it's strong enough. I edited her reaction, the fight or flight reaction, because I felt like it was I didn't like how it was worded. But I think that I need to go back in and when his hand is on her back, I purposely used the word pushing her in. Like I used kind of violent words for what's actually happening. And so, but I think I need to go back and tweak that a little bit so that we can feel the panic that's rising in her. I don't think there's enough panic inside of her for the reader.
I did want to say something about that, but then I felt like, well, maybe I'm being a little bit ridiculous, but I would think that a man touching her in any way would make her kind of react somehow.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it was a piece of meat that I was not going to offer, but it totally aligns with what you think the piece needs. So I'm going to say I agree.
Right. And then, and so like this chapter isn't about Grant. However, somehow I have to get the information about Grant from Sarah to Phoebe. Like they're sisters and they would talk about this kind of thing.
Yeah. Does Phoebe know what happened?
Nobody knows.
Okay. That's what
nobody knows.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right. Grant will be the first person that she tells of what happened to her. Yeah, so I've got to figure out a way. Maybe I just need to end the chapter inside. I agree. I need to add more action there. Like that's too dialogue-y. And maybe that's what I meant by info dumping. Maybe I felt like it was just too much of that. But I got to find a way to transition. I got to find a way for the reader to at least know that now Phoebe knows about Grant without retelling the whole thing. There might be parts that I need to have her retell so that we as the reader can see her opinion of what's happening. Like, or I don't know.
Well, maybe it could just be like, okay, so she's already met one very unsavory man, right? Mm-hmm. And because her sister was sent to work there for the reason that she was, Phoebe might mistakenly, like Phoebe might bring it up. Like, you know why you were sent here, and then here's this guy who acts this kind of a way. Are you feeling tempted? You know what I'm saying? Because like Phoebe might approach it from like, is this good for you, Sarah? Do we need to get you out of here? Because here's this guy who would more than happily engage in whatever everybody thinks Sarah wanted from Grant, right? And so maybe it could be that kind of a conversation. I don't know.
That's a good idea.
I don't think that Phoebe feels like, well, we just wanted to stick it. Phoebe feels to me like she does have a purpose, because I feel like I believed that the sister would come there to check on the other sister. And I believe that all of that kind of made sense in the book. So she absolutely does not feel like something you just threw in there, in my opinion.
So I'm at almost 2,000 words in just what I've shared with you guys. I think maybe less because I took part of the ending off. So in order to keep it where it's not such a long, dragged out chapter, I've got to make some decisions. But I do believe that I at first I thought maybe I could just end the chapter with her sitting down and tell her sister, and less just assuming what was said. But then we don't see Phoebe's reaction, and Phoebe has a purpose, and you guys know me, like I want God's message to come through. So I think I just probably need to pray about this chapter more to really know what God feels is the message of this chapter, so that I know how it's supposed to end, and then maybe I can work on that. But yeah,
well, I do agree with that. And it's so funny. You're like, well, I'll pray and see what God says. And I'm like, no, listen to what I say. But that's not really what I mean.
No, but because God can use you. Don't ever. I always want to hear what you say, because I feel like God can use my Christian friends. So yeah.
I think that this could totally be 2 chapters, and you could figure out some kind of a cliffhangery way to end the first part. You could say, would Phoebe even understand? Question mark. And then you have to turn the page to see, is she gonna tell about Grant or not? Right. So you can make it be like, surprise, it's my sister. Oh, I love you. And then she's deciding what she should or shouldn't say to her strict, upright sister.
That's a really great idea. That's probably what I should do, because I love to end chapters where you have to turn the page. So, all right, great. And Pumpkin, I don't know. Like, it needs to be
what do you want it to say?
It needs to be a nickname that would be for a child, and that Sarah would cringe at, because her family kind of still sees her as a child. That has to be part of the plot. Like they have to have their own arc too, where they realize stop treating her like a child. But Pumpkin doesn't seem right to me. You know, it needs to be something that.
So similar to like Half Pint, obviously not Half Pint, but
Yeah,
something like that where
yeah, we're clearly like she's taller than Phoebe at this point. So she should not be referring to her and as any little girl nickname, but it needs to be something that shows the culture of the family so that the readers can really relate to poor Sarah, that she has been going through that. The parent, like Jamie said, family doesn't realize they're doing this to her because they love her, but they are doing this to her. Some part of it still. So yeah.
Well, I don't know what it means. And 1975. Never mind. 1901. What year are you in? You're later than that.
The 20s.
Yeah, my grandpa used to call us Captain Jinx, and I don't know what that was, but it always seemed to me to be like a little scamp. So he'd be like, "What are you doing, Captain Jinx?" You know. So I don't know if you would use that or not, but just something that's kind of like magpie, because magpies are always tricky, or some kind of like Sly Fox, or I don't know. You know what I mean?
In my mind, it would be because they loved her and adored her. That's why they spoiled her. And it would have, there's a big age difference. So she would have been so little. In my mind, it would have been a name that she might have gotten when she was like really little, like crawling
so small. So something.
Yes.
So you want to connotate smallness. You don't, it's not about her personality as much as about she's a baby. So
and
like
then their mind, she's still frozen as a child to them.
Yeah.
Which is part of the problem.
Like
so yeah.
princess or something.
Yeah, but I don't think that would have been something I think that's more new. I don't know. I need to do some research. Maybe that would be fine.
Yeah. Something that means small.
And maybe pumpkin is it. Maybe after doing all this, I might realize, nope, that's it. I don't know. Sometimes the writing sprints bring out what you need to use. I don't know.
Pumpkin seed. Because anyway, something that means you're small or something that diminishes you in other people's view. So yeah.
Yes.
How about little squash?
Hey, turnip head.
No to that one.
Anything else, Jen, that you need to know?
Thank you so much. That was very, very helpful. You helped me see some things that I couldn't see that I now know I need to go back and fix. So I really appreciate that. Thank you guys.
Awesome. All right, so I'm next. So I will just say that I'm just looking to see what you think because of reasons that hopefully you won't say, and then I will tell you what those reasons are when I come out. So bye.
Okay. First thing I want to say is I'm super disappointed. I read your stuff, all of your stuff on this laptop here, and I opened it down here, and none of my notes saved. So I'm gonna have to. So dumb. I should have printed it. I know that I should print it. Just trying to save paper. But
yeah, I can understand that.
I don't need to go first, but I do want to say that I love it. So I don't know if anyone else wants to go first with your.
Tina, do you have anything? I've got a few things to say, but I don't want to go first again.
Go ahead.
No, Tina, you never go first. You go first.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I really love this character, Frank Fargo, and I really like the whole feel of him. His fascination with Bogart and how he wants his office to be just like it, and like that whole story plot line, I guess it is. It's really cool to me. I really like that, and I love detective stories, so I'm really interested in reading the rest, like, you know, what's coming next. So that's my bread. I think he's a great character. I like this girl and her fascination, you know, with how he is. So for meat, there's like on the first page, and there's middle section, starting with like Fargo was impressed.
Yep.
And going down to like when he'd started high school. That, I don't know, that section was just a little slow for me. And I don't know if it's all the information that's in there about the 1940s and 50s, and she says Bogart several times and the Maltese Falcon a couple times. So maybe it was just a little too repetitive. I really can't, I'm just not really good at like really sticking what it is exactly, but I just know that section slowed me down and it felt kind of slow to me. So she might want to look at that and think about tightening it up. But other than that, I really like this.
I think that portion, Tina, it's just a dump. And I shouldn't start with my meat, but just to reply to that, I meant to ask her if this was straight out of her Nano. Does anybody know, or did she edit it?
I know that she came from a Nano that she wrote like years and years ago, but I don't know the answer about how much editing she did.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure
So
it's for her
basically,
Nano because she opened up her Nano stuff and was like, "This is actually not as bad as I thought." So she might have, she probably did a quick edit before she gave it to us. But
okay. Well, for a Nano project that she did that long ago, this is it's fantastic when that's the bar. Now, Jamie, today, what, 9 years later, there's a lot of information that I know that she would have already taken out. So, like that section you're talking about, Tina, and it's just explaining the whole concept of Sam Spade and, what this guy is trying to be. So she could either just take it right out because she's already describing the guy great. So I think we already have an idea of who he is. But okay, so let me retreat. I want to go back and start my critique with I am so excited to have this finished book to read. That she is a fan of this, and to hear her take on it, I'm thrilled. I hope that we get a section of this every week.
Me too.
Until it's done. Let's see. I love the Rockabilly Waitress. I really hope that these two get paired up through the book because I already am a fan of both of them. I appreciate his willingness to dress his outside like his inside. And I just, oh my word, there's so much. The line about her hair is folded up into a beehive. Great. The typewriter with the sticky J key. Just the details that she added. I'm a fan. So that's my bread and my meat all jumbled up like a salad.
My bread was actually part of your guys' meat, to be honest. I loved the explanation of Sam Spade because I am not a reader generally of mystery, but I know Bogart and I know the Maltese Falcon. So when she brought that in, then all of a sudden I was transported there. Like you can tell me fedora and you can tell me trench coat and I can see it. But when she gave me all that explanation, I needed it. And not only that, when she gave us that, then I was there. It wasn't just that I saw it, I was there. And so I actually, that was my bread, was that I really appreciated the way that she was able to bring the cultural reference in without it didn't feel info dumpy to me. I mean, maybe it needed some tightening. I mean, I guess I can go back and look at that again, but that part I enjoyed.
If I can just address that before you go on.
Sure.
My comment, just to clarify, is it's all of what I'm talking about is in her mind or in her thought process. So she would already know this. So for her to say, the intrepid detective of the 1940s radio drama, I mean, that just gets too, I think that she could do the same thing in a more storytelling way.
Okay.
Rather than encyclopedia way.
So maybe you tighten it up more and then maybe more. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I like that section, the information in there, but it just seemed, I don't know, it was just off a little. So
okay.
So
my meat, if I can remember it correctly, there are some editing things, and hopefully it's saved to this laptop so I can share it with her. Just, me, I find the commas and the things that should not be, capitalized and all that kind of stuff. But I tripped, and only because I know the concept, I tripped a little bit on Jessie. We really get to a lot of information about this girl, and so I'm guessing that she's an important part of the story. And if she's not, then I question why we see so much of her. Because as I'm reading it, the first time I read it through, in my mind it was Moxie. And it wasn't until I went back and went, wait a minute, no, this person's name is Jessie. This is not Moxie. So this is not the meeting of Moxie and Frank. So that's really not much meat because I've not read the rest of the story. I'm just throwing that out there to her that I was kind of like, who is this person still? So, and then, what was my other, so that was it. Like I found some corrections that need to be made, but other than that, I like where this is going. When it ended, I was disappointed. I wanted to read more. I love that it's set in Troy / Sterling Heights / Metro Detroit. I love that because this is where this author is from. And so we're going to get to see in this story really like what it was like growing up there and what as she like has them move around and do stuff, it's going to be legit. Like this isn't research. This was her life. And I can't wait to read the rest of that. So that's basically all I have. So
I'd like
you
to
guys
know if
think
there's really a hung low palace.
I'm hungry for Chinese now. Do you guys think that if she were to bring the description down and only bring it down to Maltese Falcon and Bogart and forget about the archetype and the 1940s and 50s noir, do you think that would make you happier? Like if it was just
Probably, yeah.
Well, I mean, has everybody watched those two movies? Would that be enough of a reference?
I mean, I even if you've not seen the Maltese Falcon, I think that like she says made famous. Let's see. So there's 2 paragraphs. So I'm just looking at this fresh now because I didn't stumble on it. So I'm just trying to see if we can give her, instead of just saying, well, I stumbled on it, if we can give her something meatier that she can actually walk away with.
Because she uses the word Bogart 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in just 2 paragraphs.
Okay, so
and then in that 3rd paragraph she uses it a few more times. So that's kind of part of it.
Maybe if I know enough, the girl said, giving him another week. In that paragraph, if she takes out the Bogart had played the role so well, all the rest of that off, because and it would just say that Humphrey Bogart portrayed him in the 1941 flick, The Maltese Falcon. Maybe that could be reworded a little bit different, but then it goes right into him saying, I'm a big Bogart fan. I have been since I was a kid, Fargo said. He was in fact a fan of old Hollywood. So she mentions old Hollywood and she'd had Hollywood before. So maybe pick one or the other spot and that would tighten it up. But I like the second paragraph where she mentions him going with his parents. Like, I think that that's good. And I want her to leave that. So, like I said, I didn't trip on it, but if she needed like a reference on how to fix it, maybe I would take out that last sentence in the previous paragraph and then maybe look at the paragraphs and like Tina said, maybe try to find a way to like take Bogart's name out of there.
I think that talking about seeing the Maltese Falcon would be enough then without having to say this part above here where made famous when Humphrey Bogart played him in the flick. Like you could take that out and just talk about, because you're already talking about Bogart, we know that. And then if he talks about going to see the Maltese Falcon, then that's going to be self-evident that he played it. You know what I'm saying?
So I know enough, the girl said, giving him another wink, that made Fargo wonder whether she was still referring to the intrepid detective, period. I'm a big Bogart fan, have since I was a kid, Fargo said. He was in fact, and then go into the rest of that because she mentions Hollywood, she mentions Bogart. Maybe, I mean, that's just one place, but again, like I didn't trip on it, but I am not a fan of the genre. So people that are reading this are going to be a fan of the genre.
Yeah, and if you are a fan of the genre, then you know who Bogart is.
For sure.
And you know who Sam Spade is.
But I like that she puts it in there. She needs to put enough of there in there for readers like me that stumble across her and that will become and they will become J.R. Nichols fans because of her great writing, but we'll want to keep coming back. Yeah. Okay. Anything else, ladies? All right. I am not going to make her wait like you guys so
the only one
well, it's a lot more fun to do that to you than
again. I've just got.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
There's this one spot where she uses lisping twice. So if like one time she could say speech impediment or his strange way of talking or something rather than using the lisping twice, but I'm sure that she's already got that underlined. I'm done.
Oh, yeah, good point. All right, let's let her out. Welcome back, Jamie.
Okay, I have to say thank you so much for investing your time and energy into all that awesome feedback. Is very good and very helpful. Something that I think would be really fun to discuss is the whole ideal of who the audience is for these books, because the audience is not, I don't think, who you guys think it is. I think my audience is going to be people who like cozies, because Moxie is not a detective and she sort of stumbles into this crime solving caper kind of a world. And And it's not a cozy because Frank Fargo used to be a detective, so she's not really an amateur sleuth, like whatever. And so I don't think that necessarily people who pick up these books are going to be as familiar with old Hollywood and gumshoes and things like that. And so I gave myself license to cozy because I understand that it's okay to info dump if you're writing a cozy. And I decided that people who pick up this book, if they normally read The Cat Solved the Yarn Store Mystery and they're like 35 years old, they may not have a single clue who Sam Spade is and what I'm talking about. And I just took license to just dump all of that in there. And I tried to write it artfully enough. I tried to write it to where you would hold your nose and get through it if you already knew this stuff, sort of like Rhonda and Tina, right? And so if you were invested enough by this point, because you've already met Moxie, hopefully you love her, you're reading this interaction, and hopefully you like these people, you would get the information in a way that is like taking medicine, but it's pleasurable. Now, it's not to say I won't go and revisit it and see if I can't tighten it up, because it is kind of a hybrid thing. It is something that I've recently discovered, but I did do a pass over it. And the thing that I wanted to know about was exactly what you guys were talking about. Did this feel authentic or too much or not enough or whatever. And I think it's really interesting that it was divided. And Jennifer is more the representation of the people who might stumble across this book, but have no idea what gumshoe, private dick, whatever even is, and has to learn all of that because I'm exposing them to it. And, and so in the spirit of like, if, the cold January night was foggy and cold, past muster, I feel like, well, even if it is maybe a little info dumpy, it still is okay. And so that was kind of my big question. And so to hear you guys kind of have a difference of opinion on that was so super helpful, because it helps me to re-examine that, and then I'll have to make some choices.
And let's be honest, part of the problem, at least in my mind, with the fact that we are reading this to critique it is if we don't find some kind of meat, then sometimes I feel like I'm not doing you a
favor.
Like I'm doing you an in-service by not finding meat. And so honestly, if I was just reading this for pleasure, I would have just read through it and kept going. But because I was tasked with trying to find something that might be meat, that I commented on it.
I hear you loud and clear. And I am not saying that you are wrong. And I'm not saying that it may not need to be just like, is she still talking about the detective, period, right? So it's just very fascinating that the crux of what you guys were kind of going back and forth was exactly the problem that I wondered, did this problem exist? So it's actually very helpful that you brought that up.
To play devil's advocate, though, too, is that I think that it's good to have us be very critical of each other's writing, too, because there will be readers out there that they come into it like that. For example, if anyone watched the podcast, I mentioned that the street team member that found the mistake, which I'm so thankful that she found that mistake. It was a huge mistake. She found the mistake. She mentions in her, and she mentioned it to me before, in her review of the book, that she's super critical and that it's really hard to impress her. There will be readers like that, and those readers will be the ones that will write reviews.
Yeah.
The ones that are just like kind of read through it like, oh, that was fine. They might give you like a rating, but they're not going to write a review. It's the ones that like take the time to write. So we have to think about that too. Like, yes, we don't want to like kill ourselves, like trying to like make the perfect book, but it doesn't hurt for us to think that those people will be out there, and we need to make sure that our book will pass their snuff too.
For sure. I mean, someone might be so irritated by it that they are like, I don't understand why everyone's giving this book even 1 star. It's just an info dump from the beginning to the end. And I just couldn't even get over what she just shut up already about Humphrey Bogart, right? Like, so that could totally happen.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was reading that section, when I just did my first read through, I stopped at that section, and I read probably more nonfiction than I read anything else. And so my mind just was like, oh, information. I want to learn what's going on. But it did take me out of the story. So you, as a writer, I think one of the reasons that I am so in love with almost everything you write is because you already naturally can be a cozy mystery writer, just with the natural information you already put into the stories and the details. So I don't know if you need to try that hard to do that.
So now let's now let's imagine a 28-year-old mom of a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old picks this book up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it still too much information if this is someone who has never ever heard of Humphrey Bogart or the Maltese Falcon or any of that stuff? Like, is it still too much? Like, and this is a genuine question.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I don't think that I can actually answer that question for you. I think that you would have to find 2 or 3, maybe homeschooling moms, somebody that you know that's that age that can read that for you and give you that answer. Because I can't take myself enough out of my head to give you a good answer for that.
I think that if you were to tighten it up, like there is quite a bit of repetition. I think some of it's okay, but I think that if you were to find a way to like maybe use the word Bogart a little bit less, maybe only use Hollywood once, like kind of how if you tighten it up a little bit, I wouldn't delete a bunch of it because I did like it. If you were tighten up a little bit, I think that you are fine. I mean, again, you're probably going to put this in front of other readers before you actually publish, but as moving forward, I think that it just needs a little tightening.
Awesome. And I appreciate that because there's more to come. I mean, you all are going to be like probably having this discussion about quite a lot of things. And this was sort of the work of this piece that I was not super looking forward to doing because it is trying to communicate some information and setting and everything like that without overdoing it. Right. And then how do you explain what's going on? I mean, there's ways to dress it up and be clever, or there's ways where you could just say it and now it's said and you can move on with kind of the story. Do you know what I'm saying? And it's just so interesting because I am so anti-info dumping for the most part that I wonder when I can give myself permission to do some of that so that I don't have to work so hard to make it some clever, he's a gumshoe and you didn't even have to say that he was. And when I can just like say it so that I can just move on with my story. So it's going to be sort of a struggle that goes all through this piece. And so if you guys will help me move through.
You mean a learning experience, not a struggle, the learning
experience. Thank you. Yes, it's the right way to reframe that. So I appreciate it. And I appreciate honesty because that's the only way that any of this gets better. It's so good to be part of a healthy group that you can bring your things to and they come away improved and you're not just decimated and never want to write again because people are hard on you. So I appreciate you, ladies.
Yeah, because we decimate ourselves enough. Like we seriously beat ourselves up enough. We don't need other people doing it. So
you're right.
So thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
So your back is well fed, James?
My back is very well fed. I appreciate you, ladies. All right, Bambina. Time for you to go through isolation chamber. What do you have to say before you're silenced?
Well, I'm kind of playing around with the beginning of this fantasy story that I've been doing all my sprints in. And here's the problem that I've been thinking about is where to start the story. I have the scene that I wrote of her where she already got sliced in the battle. I can't start with that because there's too much happening before that happens that I have to talk about. But starting with the scene with her as this happy-go-lucky girl living the ideal life just doesn't seem hooky enough, if you understand what I'm saying. So I was kind of playing around with this opening, and I just wanted to see what you thought. Because here's the thing, it doesn't, even though we hear about my main character in the first paragraph, it doesn't start with her. So that's my concern.
Okay, so clarify for me. Are you trying to say that first paragraph of this that you submitted is like you open the book and that's what you see?
Yeah, that's like the introduction.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know if I would like put it in italics above the first paragraph, or if I would call it an introduction, or if I would just have it start that way. I haven't really thought that far ahead.
And who is the audience for this? Fantasy readers?
Right. Yeah. Okay. And I'm kind of thinking about, there's this show that we watched on Netflix called Merlin. And every time the show came on, they started with this monologue of in the land of magic and mystery or whatever it was. In the world, I forget what they said exactly, but that was kind of what I was picturing in my mind in that first paragraph.
All right.
Yeah, that's it.
So here we go. Silence to you. And I'm happy to go first. Nobody else wants to go first.
Sure.
I highlighted that whole first paragraph and I wrote, didn't you write a more fleshed out version of this? I thought I remembered reading it and it was much better than this. Does anybody else remember some fairy taking away a baby and giving the baby to some people? Like maybe it was a sprint that her and I did on a day when you guys were not in office hours or something, but it was much better because that first paragraph was just very much like
blah.
Yeah, like she needs to say prologue. In a dark forest, a baby cried, and the fairy took her away, which is exactly what she said in this piece that I'm remembering that she's already written. So it needs to be more like, why are you just telling us that? Why are you just telling us all of this? And why are you not painting a scene? This is fantasy.
Right.
This is like, that's what those readers want. They want to be transported to another world and another time. And if she wants to start each paragraph with that or something, like maybe, or maybe have it on like a title page or like, you know what I mean? So like maybe she has prologue and then she has a page that only says that. And then it's like chapter 1. I don't know.
Right. So I don't read fantasy. So I was concerned. This was my whole sticking point for this piece too, was these first 2 paragraphs. I don't read fantasy. So I'm like, is this how they start? Because it's very just tell. And I would like put a book down. If I read this, no matter what it was, I would put it down because I'm like, I didn't feel anything from this. And so when she shared what she just did, then that helped me to like really figure out like how I was going to like really give the critique. But rather than telling us all this, I'd rather she show us. And like, I can't help but think of like the very first Harry Potter. My problem with her doing it this way, and she said that she's thinking about this TV show that she watched. I know the TV show, is that she's not writing episodes. If this book were going to be released as just little episodes, like a TV show, but in book version, then I could probably get behind that. And then she would put that at the beginning of each one. But then you would still be revealing the backstory in the first few episodes. Like if you were to go back in that show she's talking about and get to the very first episodes, even though they start with that, the first few episodes build so that you know what's happening in this world. Where I feel like this doesn't fit what she's trying to do. I would much rather see, like, if she's looking for what kind of scene, why not show us the frantic rush to get this baby, safely to this family and the emotions and
the brokenhearted. We just lost our child. But here is a new child, and
right.
we can. I mean, like, there's so much opportunity to squeeze feeling and emotion.
Yes, and then as they leave the child, whoever drops it, I think it was one person, but maybe she could put another person in there or be inside that person's head and say, now the baby's safe, at least until their 17th birthday. Boom. And then we go into the story, and then we're like, okay, we got to, and then, or my other idea was, let's just go do it like the 3 wise men. Let's go back to where King Herod, finds out, and he acts all fake that, oh yes, we need to find this child. So instead of it being like that he doesn't know anything about this happening until the baby, or until the woman turns 17, why not, she could set the whole story up as the prophets telling what's happening to this guy, and then we get to see that this evil king or whatever, I don't know, however she wants to do it, but I agree, we need more emotion.
Well, and I just want to backpedal a little bit because I started with meat unintentionally, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the bread for me is just, I am digging this genre. I'm digging Tyrion. I like so much that is going on with this. I appreciate this kind of a story. I love the premise and the thoughts behind it. I mean, it's really imaginative and creative, and all of that stuff is very good bones to hang a story like this on. And so I apologize for jumping right out the gate with some meat, but it's just because I think what happened is visually I was triggered because I had that whole first couple of paragraphs highlighted.
Well, plus she brought up what she was looking for, which is exactly what we had in our meat. So that didn't help. So, but I agree. Like I love this story. I love that it's a fantasy and I can't wait to see more. So yeah, so go ahead. Sorry.
Ron, did you want to say anything about the first couple of paragraphs?
Why, yes, I do. Okay. So, Tina, forget everything they just said. No, I'm just kidding. Don't forget what they said because that was very valuable feedback. But okay, I do read fantasy. And my favorite series or authors are the ones who start out like this. Because when I start to watch a television show, I usually don't watch something unless it's been recommended by somebody because I don't like wasting my time. And so they give me a synopsis of what's going on, of whatever. So basically, to me, that's what she's doing. She's synopsisizing the backstory. And so that gets me started. So I don't have to worry about what happened in the back. And I know eventually more of that will be coming out, but I can just get to the first scene and I kind of already have a flavor for it. So I can get my mind right. And I don't know, I think in fantasy, that happens a lot. And so that didn't bother me at all. I mean, if you wanted to flesh it out, sure, I'd take some of that too. But I like the intro synopsis. Um, Everything changed, the last two words in that little paragraph. I think you could do better than that. But, the wording and the rest of the two paragraphs, everything changed. Just doesn't really fit with that. I think you could do something a little bit more flavorful or something to end it. But I wouldn't mind seeing a few more words in it. And so anyway, I'm excited to read this story too, because it's been a while since I've read a fantasy, and I think this is going to be a good one. And I'd like to know, is it going to be sort of a what's that called? Like a Bible story. I can't think of the word. Not a parable, but
Allegory.
Allegory. Yes, thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. Is that what this is going to be?
Yeah, I think it is because I feel like we've talked often about the Inklings. Am I muted?
No, we can hear you.
No, Tina can't hear. I was trying to talk to her.
We've talked often about the Inklings and how Tolkien and Lewis wanted to use fantasy to help people understand Christ and his relationship with his creation. And so I do believe that this will end up being allegory, either accidentally because she is a Christian and that's what's going to flow out of her, or unintentionally. I did have some other meat. I was very confused about the god, whatever the name was, having a letter named C, and then Sirius having a letter named C, Critonus. Mm-hmm. So I suggested, could she change someone's name to not start with the letter C, because it really confused me. Also, there's a little bit of internal missing for me. Like, what is the king thinking? There's a lot of action without a lot of so he long suspected a traitor in his midst. I would prefer two examples. They foiled the plot about this, it's just, I'm going to send her my little notes here so that I can help her specifically see where I would like a little more enhancement. So like, this priest comes in and the priest says, I have news. And then his face was white and his fingers remained still. So I'm trying to figure out in my mind, is the priest scared of the king? Is the priest used to the king being crazy, or kind of whatever? So he's either not scared of me, or what he has to share will be welcome news. I don't know. I'm not really able to articulate it. I have it written down here, but I don't want to just read stuff.
I stumbled on that part too. The part I stumbled on is that she writes it as if the king does not know who this priest is. Yeah, I would assume that if the priest had enough access that he could be in the room while the king is naked, then he should know who he is. Now, or this is really showing us how arrogant the king is, that no one's going to touch him. You can even come in while I'm having a bath and you're not going to be able to do anything, which that's good too. But I think that it would, I just think that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more, because I did stumble on that area exactly too. So.
And then these prophecies, I'm sure in editing, they'll become a little bit more finessed, but I really cannot buy that the prophecy would name the king. that the prophecy would know the name of whoever's going to be on the throne when
That's a
whatever
good point.
happens, because it would, again, she could refer to him as son of Critonus or whatever, but to really say it'll happen during the reign of Donald Trump would be a little bit, it's a little unbelievable for me, because, and also the priests are supposed to be solving a puzzle, and so if they knew that it would be during his reign, then this would have been not brand new news to anybody. It would have been, the king would have not, like, because if a prophecy has your name in it, you know,
Right.
that's going to be a little bit different than something that's tricky and hard to solve.
I agree
So
with all
again,
that.
I'm sharing all of my me, and really I want to go back and point out that she has so much going on here with relationships between a man and his servants, and she has a whole lore that she's building and a world that she's building. She's doing a very good job. So I don't want my meat to overshadow sort of all of the wins that she's having with this. We all want to keep reading it, and I'm very excited to see where it goes.
I agree with all of that, and it's interesting to me that Rhonda says that this type of opening is common with fantasy, so that probably would change my meat a bit. Then if that is true, then and if the author really wants to stick with this kind of opening, I just think it needs to be fleshed out some more. I think that like 2 paragraphs is like what you would hear at the front of a TV show, but this is not an episodic adventure. You're writing a book. If you were going to write, if this was going to be an episodic bunch of short stories, then my answer would be different. Like if you were going to put it out in like 1,500 words and then publish those or something like that.
Or maybe if she just took all of that information and tried to turn it into more like a poem or like a metered, in the days of blah de blah, a child,
I like that idea.
Blah de blah, and this child would bring peace to the land, blah de blah, or something that was more like would be told like by a bard or something, right? So it needs to be then written, because I did not understand what it was when she said it was supposed to be like this little opening of it. Then those have a cadence to them, or they have like they read like a descriptive. Do you know what I'm saying? So I might encourage her to finesse it in that way to where it feels a little more poetical.
And Rhonda, are there some fantasies that don't open this way, that open the way that we're suggesting? So
yeah, and it really goes by the author, because you know, different in fantasy, there are authors that are known for doing certain things, and so not all of them do that.
Right. So I think I'm going to go back to my original meat because having read the prologue for Lost and knowing that this author could take all this information and write it in such a way that we feel like our heart's beating and that we're like, you know, we're like on the journey to get this baby, you know, could take this information and make into that. I think that would be a much better opening than even if she reworks this and makes it the greatest type of opening like this. I feel like I would like to see her do it the other way. But again,
yeah, and that's where I'm just like, because I'm almost sure she's written that. I thought it was some fairy who whisked the baby away and got the baby to safety. So anyway, I can't wait for her to come out and tell me, yes, Jamie, what you're remembering is blah, blah, blah. So it's my opinion she can come out. How do the rest of you feel about it?
Yep.
Okay, thanks, guys. Jamie, I have no memory of writing that.
Oh my goodness.
If I did, I don't remember it. So I would have to like do a search, maybe search for fairy or something on my computer. Yeah, because if I did, that would be exciting. Some of the things that I was thinking about was like I read this one fantasy book and they started each chapter with a quote from their holy books. So I thought of like turning it into like a quote from the books of the histories of whatever or something like that. So that was one idea I had. Another idea was to like actually tell that story. I haven't gotten to that part yet. That's why I'm just kind of struggling with how to start, like where to start kind of
thing. How
to
Train Your Dragon had that, right? Because you're pretending that you're reading through a dragon manual, and then it kind of is like, Chapter 2, never feed your dragon vegetables or something like that. So, and then it would say dash the book of blah, 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 chapter 1 or something.
Right. Oh, so like each chapter then would start off with part of the scriptures. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Like And obviously I'd need to reword it if I was going to have it be a quote from like the book of history, the history of that kingdom or something.
Mhm.
Actually, it would be that kingdom. It would be the magical world's history. So if I did that, I would have to word it differently so it sounded more like something that was from a book. But
So,
yeah, I was thinking
Tina,
about doing that.
what you're saying is what you said before you went into isolation was you're having a really hard time with beginnings. And my problem is I'm also terrible with beginnings. And furthermore, I have suggestions for you, but I also find that you don't do your best work when you are writing an assignment. Like, so if I said to you something like, you can start out with just like every other day. So your Tyrion is living her normal life, but with a minor crisis, such as a little boy fell in the well and the whole town had to come and pull the like some. So you can still do what you said, like introduce your character, but she doesn't have to be imperiled, and it doesn't have to be some kind of a great big drama. Just something, like, ouch, that hurt, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't really want to steer you so much that you feel like you've gotten an assignment. Okay, now I must write a story about when she was a little girl and blah, because then I feel like that constricts you, and then we get that stilted writing instead of the beautiful prose. But you don't have to feel like you have to start with a dark and ominous scene or some intense action or whatever for it to be a good beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about doing the King Herod type of opening where we meet the king at the birth when the prophets figure it out at the birth, but they don't know who she is or where she is? Is that too much allegory for you?
Yeah, I kind of don't want him to find out until it's almost too late.
Okay.
Because
You know your story. I don't know your
right.
story.
I must have done something wrong because this king is not evil.
I
Well,
had to
it
read it
could-
a couple of times because what it says is not that he's going to kill her, but that she's going to reveal the source of evil, and then the king is going to vanquish it. Correct,
Yeah.
Tina?
Yes.
So he's really wanting to find her and do good by her, which I had to go back and reread because I thought he was being crafty at the end when he was like, "We wouldn't want anything to happen to her." Mwah ha ha. And I'm like, "Oh wait, I think he's not being sarcastic. I think he really means that."
Plus,
Right.
we've read that she's being chased by the king's men, and that like she,
Okay.
so
But see, he's got a bad guy in his leadership.
so I think it'd be okay for us to think at this point that he's a bad guy.
Yeah, see, I'm
Oh.
trying to keep it a little vague, but he is not going to be a bad guy.
Well, it could be vague.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just am like reading it based on what I know. Do you know what I'm saying? So you might have hit the mark on that because myself personally think that he's bad, but like Jamie read it twice, like I can't tell if he's bad. So that you probably hit the mark on that.
Okay.
No, I read it twice and I came away thinking he's good. So
Oh.
because in the prophecy, clearly it says she is going to reveal the source of darkness, and then the king is going to vanquish the source of darkness. So he needs her to do all of that stuff. Better, in my opinion, to make it be like, we found the one, we found the girl, we've discovered this in the prophecy, but don't say that the king is going to vanquish evil because of her, but just now she's wanted because she's in the prophecies, and maybe let us imagine that the king has ill intent toward her. Do you see what I'm saying? So like,
And then
if you don't, yeah.
And then as you reveal each of the scriptures, each chapter for us, the scriptures could be giving us insight into that too, and we grow in our knowledge of it. So
that's a
would
good
be cool.
idea. Because my idea is, and it's not fleshed out completely, that the fulfillment of the prophecies, just like in the Bible, has like an actual physical fulfillment, and it has a more spiritual fulfillment. So there is, like, I think it's going to be the general of his armies is going to be the traitor, and it's going to come to light through the process of the story. But the real prophecy is about the inner darkness within the king. So he's not a bad guy, but just like all of us, he's fallible, and he has parts of him that need to be purged. And so when he meets her and their relationship evolves, even though there's this other stuff going on, there's going to be part of him that's going to be revealed to himself that he doesn't realize is there.
Relationship evolves.
So that's
Now I'm really interested.
and like she's 17 and he's 21. So
Oh, I did not get that. I got that he was much older and feared, and
because I was trying to. That's part, and I'll probably take it out, but that's part of what I was trying to hint at in the prophecy where it said the 21st year of Sirius.
Nope, because I thought that was his reign.
I did
he'd been
too.
on the throne for 21 years.
Yep,
Nope.
that's what I thought
See, in
too.
my mind, it was like when he was 3, she was born, and and now he's 21. So I would either have to say, oh yeah, and my 21st birthday's that same week.
Nope.
Or to take it all out.
What you say is the muscles rippling along his whatever in his 21 years, the scars of battle and blah, all that stuff that Tina Katane can do when she's not when she's like poetically being Tina Katane. You could communicate all of that to us without saying, well, my birthday is next week and I'll turn 21.
Right.
So again, don't look at it as an assignment. Look at it as like a lump of clay that you're going to take and put your fingers in and smush them around, and you're going to like craft this thing, right? And you're going to reveal all of that to us in artful, beautiful language, which I completely believe that you are capable of doing.
Right. But I do need to be clearer about his age because you guys didn't understand that. So
I thought 21st year Cerberus, that's his reign on the throne.
Yeah.
Cerberus, isn't that like a 300?
Serious.
I for sure thought he was in his 40s, not only because of that, but also because like the way you talk about his body being like a large, like usually my sons are like in their early 20s. I've got one that is turning 21 and one that's turning 26, and their muscle is completely different from each other because men just when you get to that size, you're usually older.
Mm-hmm.
So and Spencer hasn't gotten there, Nathan is. So what I'm saying is so maybe I like what Jamie said. Talk about maybe more sinewy muscles, which would be more like a young, like a 20-some-year-old, unless they're steroiding or whatever. And I love the idea of the scars and stuff.
He started training as a warrior with sword play and stuff at 13, which would be common in that kind of.
So give us that. And then point out that most boys or young men his age would not be as large as he is if he hadn't spent all of his adolescence training for give us that. Yeah. That would make a lot of sense.
It's fantasy. So say all of the last name bloodline are known for their muscly physique, or you know what I'm saying? Since it's fantasy, you can be saying my whole line way back to Theodore the First or kind of whatever. There was only one scrawny guy in the whole line or something. If you need to have a scrawny heir later in the epic, you know what I'm saying? So you can spend a lot of time dwelling and fiddling around with that stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah. Right. And not to continue to beat this, but I really believe in the story. So one more thing I would say too, and something that we've that I know that you have had issues with in the past with other stories is we need to care about these characters. You're really been in this story. You've been really great about writing things that are happening and creating this world, but why do we care? So this would be a great spot for you to be inside this young man's head about him. If this prophecy really names him and he's known it his whole life, and he's been training and worried, he's worried about this coming true. If he's only 21, where is he in his headspace about this? And so I would like us to be more to know, even though he's this big, strong thing, is he scared inside? I don't know. You need to give us a little bit more to where we care.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And I think when people say show, don't tell, and then we try to show and not tell, we might do things like show him clenching his fist. And then we think we've told our readers that he's worried, when sometimes you really just need to say he was really worried. Right? So, maybe sometimes we're trying to not say, well, we just have to come out and say, we're trying to show it.
Yeah. Maybe instead of him being in his head saying, oh, either this person has good news or they're not scared of me, instead of that, because that's kind of arrogant. Maybe this guy is arrogant. I don't know. Maybe instead. Oh, okay. Well, then that probably works then. I was just going to say, us see inside of him saying that, they might see this strong outside, but they don't understand how worried he is all these years or whatever. I don't know. So,
because he's been raised to be a king, so he has this royalty arrogance and confidence that may not be realistic.
Gotcha. Understandable.
But like I said, like you guys said, if I spend a little more time in his head, that stuff might be just a bit clearer.
Mm-hmm.
Rhonda, you've been really quiet. Do you have nothing to contribute, or you just feel like you can't get a word in edgewise?
Well, I mean, you guys have really valuable things to say, and I have said what I thought about this, and I'm kind of sticking by it. But I do like the idea of the poem instead of that, and I mean, but I am interested in the story, so
So it worked for you.
it worked for me.
Yeah.
But
Awesome.
that doesn't mean it can't be improved. And
Yep.
maybe it work even more for me.
Yeah, you're already a fan, so
Yeah.
awesome. All right, Tina, is your back well fed?
Oh yeah, I think I overate.
Sorry. Please don't go away discouraged.
Oh, I'm not, because this was really kind of a sprint.
Okay.
And then I took the sprint and I kind of kept tweaking it until I was happy enough to submit it. So, I mean, it's definitely not completely fleshed out to begin with. So it was really good feedback, and to hear what your perceptions were of it and things I need to flesh out gives me a direction. So.
Great. Awesome. All right, Rhonda, what do you want from us?
All right. I'm experimenting with scenes, and I would like to know how short a scene could be and really how long a scene could be. And I appreciated that Jennifer was talking about her scene because, she was worried about it being too long or whatever. And so I would just like to know, is there enough information in what I submitted for it to be considered a scene? Because it really doesn't have. What I was reading recently is that a scene should be like a mini story. It should have beginning, middle, end, should have the inciting incident, the climax, all that. So basically what we were trying to convey is Jenny's frustration with her life right now and her relationship with her friend Rosie.
Okay.
So is it good enough to be a scene? That's my ultimate question.
All righty. Silence. All right, who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go first. To answer her question, I feel like there should be something else at the end. I don't know that this climax is really where she wants to end this scene. Because here was the question I had when I was reading this, and I think part of it is, of course, we're getting these stories in chunks, and there's this time in between, and then I'm forgetting everything I read before. Like, I have a general idea what I read before, but a lot of the details are fuzzy. So as Jenny is saying that she's, not too happy about how her life's going, and then Jenny starts pointing out all this wonderful stuff, I was wondering what it is. Why is she feeling? I'm sorry. It's Rosie that's pointing out the wonderful stuff in her life, and Jenny that's feeling, down or whatever she's feeling. I was trying to figure out why she was feeling that way, and I don't feel like it told me that in this particular scene. Unless I missed something, I don't think it's there. But other than that, I love these characters. I love the barbecue.
Oh my goodness. I wrote in my critique, I'm so hungry now. And I said, if you mention how that chicken smells, I would both love you and hate you at the same time.
Right.
She did a really good visual. And I got just so hungry for barbecue reading that.
Mm-hmm. And the coleslaw and the biscuits. Yeah.
Stop. I'm so hungry right now.
I am too. And I have an interview in less than half an hour. I'm not going to have time to eat.
An interview? Oh,
yeah. You didn't catch
that.
Yeah. My homemade method group that I belong to is wanted to interview me, and then, so I have an appointment at 1 to do that.
Plug our podcast. No, just kidding. Not really.
It'll be
Plug
fine.
our podcast. No, just
It's
kidding.
online, so I really just have to close Google Hangout and open
Aw.
Zoom. So, but yeah, that I mean it. I love Rhonda's writing, and I love her characterizations, and the way she writes characters, and all the little details that like the chicken dripping with glossy red sauce. Like, I love that kind of stuff.
Please stop! You're killing me.
I know. Sorry. Would you like a peanut?
I would
have
like
peanuts.
A peanut. Yes.
I love Rhonda's writing as well, but I have to say, I think that I prefer it when she writes contemporary time periods as opposed to past. I love this. And I don't know if it's because Rhonda and I are the same age, like almost exactly, like we like have so many similar memories from growing up, but the slimline phone reference had me. Like, I was just laughing out loud, and I'm like, yes, it's not as satisfying to like hang up your cell phone. Like,
and then she's shaking it because
Yes.
she can't. She needs to do something. Yeah.
Like, this felt genuine to me, I guess, is maybe probably what it is. Not that her other stuff feels disgenuine, but this just really feels genuine. And so I really, I love when she writes contemporary stuff and she puts in like kind of 80s references so that you know how old this person is, or maybe like late like 90s too in there. So I really love that. I love the references to low carb because that is just so right now, and it just speaks to me as well. So yeah, I totally love all of that. My meat was, and again, it's not on this copy, it's on the copy on this other laptop, so I will try to get it to you if it's saved, Rhonda, but that there were a few times that she slipped from past tense to present tense. Just a few, really small, but you know me, like that's the kind of stuff that I notice, right? So if that's the only meat I have, then you did well. But to address her question about like if this is enough, I don't think it's enough either. I agree with Tina. I thought we only had part of a chapter or part of a scene, like ending with the way it ended, like and so the purpose too, I feel like the purpose was it's okay that we get to meet this character, but like why is it important that we meet this character? So I would look at it to see like upping the emotional aspect, like maybe even like a flashback to like how this woman has always been there for her. Maybe give us a side story of like where she, in the past had been there for Jenny emotionally. I don't know. But just ending it with the sauce being on her shirt or on her arms doesn't make me want to turn the page, I guess is what I'm saying. It
needs more of a climax.
Something, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know what the next chapter is. If I knew what the next chapter is, then maybe we could help her to make this end in a way that makes us want to get to the next chapter. Mm-hmm. So maybe that could be something that she shares with us this week, and then we could talk about that in the postcast next week. I don't know.
I really feel like you all stole all of my bread, even though, so I'm mad that I'm going last. I mean, there was so much to love about this that it was really difficult for me to figure out what she was looking for. So I just kind of did edity stuff like, well, I might rephrase it and say it this way instead of that way. But then when she came up with the question that she had, I'm like, aha, well, I could tell you, no, this does not feel complete or finished. So hooray, I have some kind of a feedback to give you. But also I do agree with kind of Tina. She says, I just feel like my life is so out of control, but what do you mean? Like, is this the first that we're meeting this person? Do we know how her life is out of control? Because she doesn't say. And so it's kind of like all that Rosie does is say, what do you have to complain about? You have all these blessings, but we don't know what she's countering. Is she countering the fact that, I mean, what do you mean my life is feeling out of control and why do I bother? Like, I need more specifics. I don't understand, but then, yeah, the whole ending, I do appreciate that it's kind of a giggly tee-hee or something. If you want to keep it that way is, well, actually, I've discovered a secret ingredient. Maybe that would make you want to turn the page. I don't know. Or you'll never believe where I got this barbecue sauce or something. turn the page, right? Like, so I don't know if you really want to make it be about the sauce at the very end of it. But yeah, I mean, other than that, they stole all my bread. Everything they said, ditto. It's really wonderful and great. I could just, the barbecue made me just want to drool. And these people have a real relationship. They are, you know, old buddies or whatever.
You have to be old buddies if you're going to eat barbecue with each other. You don't eat barbecue with someone you're not friends with, because it's all.
Yeah. And then if you don't want to stick with the barbecue sauce and you need some other thing to have the scene, I don't know, suddenly the door opened and, you know, they both have sauce on their face and they turn and look and they're both looking like a couple of pigs or something. And
there's a hot guy standing there.
Yeah. Hello, is anybody here? And they look and it's like, it's so-and-so, you know? And so like that would
or
be
just say that's the last person either of them wanted to see. I don't know if that fits the story, but then you're like, well, who is it? And then you'll turn the page. That's the kind of ending that,
Yeah. Okay. So that's all that I really have to say. Anybody else? Can we let her come out?
No, just kidding.
Let's just make us all barbecue.
Shoot, the thing is Rhonda wouldn't care if you didn't let her come out.
Yeah, right.
So that's not as fun.
Baloney. Even though she's quieter than some of us, she definitely has an opinion and likes it to be.
We have to have the chamber of chatter, and we have to stick Rhonda in it and make her talk successfully for.
That's her torture.
Yeah. All right, Rhonda, come into the chatter chamber.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys. I really appreciate that. You completely answered my question. I figured it probably wasn't enough, but I was trying to scale it back as much as I could. I really love the idea though of them looking up with sauce on their face to, you know, Mr. Wonderful or whatever. Now,
what is the next chapter? Do you mind me asking?
Yeah.
Like what happened? Or what's the
well, the next chapter goes back to Nettie, but the next chapter with them is, well, the problem is Jenny is just in her mid-40s and her late teenage daughter is living her own life, and that's her only child. And her husband is, I don't want to give too much away, but he's working a lot of extra hours, and Jenny's frustrated because he's not home as much. But what he's doing is he's trying to raise extra money to take him on a cruise for their anniversary coming up. And so she doesn't know that. The reader, I think, knows that. I got to think about that. Knows that by now, I think. But anyway.
So here's a great thing. You can, in her head, back before when she's saying that like her life is like depressing or whatever, you can be inside her head and tell something that happened just that morning between her and her husband. Mm-hmm. Like even if you've already told us that there's this issue going on, mm-hmm. she could just visit like the fact, you know, that she's been in a she couldn't shake this feeling ever since she woke up to an empty bed. Once again, Fred is left and blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't care about me. He used to stop in and visit me and surprise me all the time. But now I don't even care. Or she doesn't even care. She doesn't even put makeup on anymore because she knows she's not going to see whatever. And he could be the one that shows up. And here she is, no makeup, stuff all over her face. And kind of like, oh, I guess you should have like, I don't know. That's just
she could say something like at the sound of his name, her hand clenched the rib the way that it had clenched her cell phone moments before when he had said yet again he would be late, and she took her aggression out by taking a tear of a bite off you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like just like tell us one story, right? Like I love that idea, Jen.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Okay, so her elbow sticking to the table with the barbecue sauce didn't feel like a hint or a clue of any sort at all.
I was reading this so out of context. I didn't know who these people were. Yeah. I didn't know that this was part of a murder mystery. Mm-hmm. Like I was reading it. I didn't know what I was reading.
I remembered who this was. That did not feel like a foreshadowing to me.
Okay. So erase that from your mind then. You did not hear what I just said.
No problem today. No problem.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. That's exactly what I asked for. Very valuable. I appreciate it very much.
All right.
Okay. And did you write this with your mom? Like, is this a combo deal or is this?
Yes. What the two of us did, she sprinted out what was going to happen in the scene. And then we talked about if anything should be added, whatever. And then I took it and I put flesh on it and, you know, try to edit it for, you know, typos and obviously not tense. Oh, that's such a struggle for me. I don't know why.
It wasn't that bad. Like I was actually like I was impressed because I know that's something you struggled with. So
well,
don't beat
I'm
yourself up.
trying to really focus on that. So
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear it wasn't quite as bad as it has been. So
Awesome. All right. So have we pretty much fed everybody's back and we're kind of ready to wrap it up for today?
Yes, because I would like to feed my stomach now.
Yeah, me too.
And I wish I had some ribs.
I know I don't have anything like I don't even think I have any chicken nuggets that I could eat with barbecue sauce or anything like that.
I have some ribs in the freezer I could throw in the Instant Pot.
Mm.
And the ribs come out perfect in the Instant Pot every single time.
But do you finish them off on the grill? You got to get that like charred.
I have
like
to put them under
sticky-
the broiler because I don't have
Okay.
a grill.
All
Yeah.
right.
I don't put any sauce on them till I take them out of the Instant Pot.
I dry rub my
Well, yeah, I have
slow
dry
cook
rub.
them. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I have like a cup of beef broth in the bottom for steam. And then I take them out very carefully because they're falling off the bone and put them on a baking sheet and slather them with sauce and put them under the broiler.
Man,
So in case Jamie wasn't hungry enough,
yeah,
Right.
now we have you more. Right. So, all right. Well, good luck with your interview today, Tina. I'm
Oh,
excited
thanks.
for you.
I'm nervous, but
Oh, don't be nervous.
oh yeah, you'll be
probably
great.
be all right. Yeah.
You're wonderful on camera. You should know that by now. They're gonna be so happy they chose you.
I don't know. They think they're choosing. I don't think I'm special, but I've been doing it a year now, so they need people to put on their advertisements.
Awesome. Well, you are a fan, so.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really been life-changing for me, so.
We
All
can
right,
tell.
you beautiful babes. We are going to sign off for today,
Okay.
but look for us on Thursday, coming to you live, and always check us out here at the Postcast. Good to see you. Thanks for being a patron.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.